The Elmwood house looks like money pretending to be history. White columns, brick walkway scrubbed to a shine, the kind of manicured hedges that make you apologize for breathing on them. I pull into the first spot by the front steps because old habits die last, and climb out of the truck wearing a suit that fits like a grudge I borrowed from a thinner man. The air smells like damp leaves and lemon polish. The parking lot is empty except for 2 catering vans with their doors yawning open and a groundskeeper's cart stacked with trash bags tied off like dark balloons. For a second, I think I'm early, which is ridiculous because Chloe's invitation said 3 o'clock, and she's the kind of person who would put a timer on sunrise. I check my watch anyway. 3 on the dot. The front doors are propped open with a brass wedge, and inside I can hear a vacuum cleaner expressing its feelings about confetti. I never thought confetti had a sound until now. Soft, apologetic, like tiny lies being collected in a hurry. The foyer is polished wood and self-importance. A clerk looks up from a ledger and gives me the expression you save for people who have wandered into a museum through the staff entrance. "Can I help you?" she says. She's young, but her voice has learned the art of telling strangers they don't belong. "Wedding," I say. "Dalton Miller. I'm the father of the groom." Her face does a complicated thing. Then, carefully, "Sir, the Dalton Miller wedding was yesterday." The vacuum turns off somewhere down the hall, and a voice calls, "Where do you want the centerpieces?" The silence after the machine stops makes everything louder, even my own heartbeat, which currently sounds like nail guns in a church. I pretend I didn't hear her right. I take my phone out like it's a translator. I call Ethan. It rings 5 times, long enough for me to regret how many of his childhood injuries I paid to stitch closed. He answers with that corporate brightness they teach at marketing boot camps. "Dad." "Parking lot's empty," I say. "You hiding the guests to build suspense?" "We already did suspense," he says. "The wedding was yesterday. You missed it." I stare at the floor as if the floor owes me an apology. "Yesterday," I repeat, because sometimes the brain needs a few laps before it recognizes the shape of a word. "Chloe sent an invite. Today, 3 o'clock. "Yeah, we changed it last minute. Security reasons, press. It got complicated. I figured Helen would tell you." He says my ex-wife's name too casually, like a tool he leaves in the rain. "Helen did not tell me," I say. "And the last time you had security problems was when the neighbor's Pomeranian barked at your drone." He laughs, soft and fake. "Don't make this weird, Dad. We'll send you photos. It was beautiful." The clerk has decided to look busy by looking busier. She pretends to write something down. The vacuum starts again, further away. I picture a woman dragging a machine over a dance floor that just hours ago held the feet of people I raised and people I didn't. "Right," I say. "Well, if it was beautiful, that's what matters." "Exactly," he says, relieved to hear the voice of the compliant parent. "We're doing a brunch with close friends tomorrow. You should come to that." "I'll pencil in being close," I say, and end the call. I walk down the hall toward the ballroom anyway, because some part of me believes in undoing reality by walking into it. In the doorway, 2 staff are performing triage on floral arrangements, cutting stems, saving what can be saved. The room smells like roses pretending not to die. Round tables with white cloths hold the remains of other people's happiness. Wax drips, lipstick on napkins, a heel tip abandoned like a small black tooth. On the floor near the head table is an oval of spilled champagne that dried into a sticky halo around a silver bucket. I see a napkin with gold foil lettering, E and C. The ampersand has flourishes that look like they were designed to strangle honesty. I pick up one of the napkins because I'm a man who likes evidence. It's damp, soft as an apology. There's a stack of wedding programs on a chair, the Elmwood house, the union of Ethan Dalton and Chloe Miller. Yesterday's date printed neat as a verdict. The cover shows a watercolor of the house that makes the columns more noble and the sky bluer and the trees less tired. I turn it over, and there's a quote about love being patient and kind. I could argue with either adjective, but I'm too old to waste spit. I take the programs to a corner of the room where a busboy is scraping plates into a gray bin. He keeps glancing toward me like I might suddenly decide to tip him with my last surviving organ. I put the programs down and pull the check from the inside pocket of my jacket, the pocket where you keep things you don't want to forget. It took 3 trips to the bank and a conversation that used the phrase high-value instrument to get the thing written. $1 million spelled out in that minty formal script. For their future, for a house with less peeling paint than mine, for forgiveness I didn't owe and grace I almost had. I tear it slowly because rage is a blunt blade and satisfaction is a sharp one. The paper resists like good linen. Halfway through, the ink bleeds at the seam and leaves my fingers smelling like a vault. When it's in 4 pieces, I drop the quarters into the champagne bucket. They land with a wet slap, and the sound is obscene enough that the busboy stops scraping and stares. I meet his eyes. He looks away. This is above his pay grade and below his threshold for telling anyone about it. If you're waiting for me to feel better, don't. The problem with a gesture like that is, it solves exactly nothing. It's theater for an audience of 1, and the applause is just your heartbeat calming down out of pity. My throat tightens anyway. I decide it's because the room is dusty. The florist, an older woman with hands like twine, approaches cautiously. "We were going to toss those programs," she says, nodding at the stack. "Do you want one for keepsake?" "No," I say, "but leave them there. I'll take the trash out when I go." She studies me, maybe remembering the guy who dropped off envelopes a few weeks ago and joked about how weddings are just permits for people to learn each other's bad habits up close. She doesn't say I'm the father. She doesn't apologize for a schedule she didn't make. She returns to her flowers, cutting stems with efficient mercy. I wander to the back of the room where a corkboard displays photos arranged in a meticulous timeline of Ethan and Chloe's romance. There's a shot of Ethan at 12, braces flashing, holding a trophy from the county robotics fair. I was there, kneeling to tie his shoelace before he went up for the photo. I know because the cuff of my flannel shirt is in the corner of the frame, a blurred blue. I stand there longer than a man should, staring at a fraction of myself not meant to be seen. The timeline jumps forward to sushi dates, matching gym selfies, Chloe hugging a dog that isn't hers with a caption about rescue. They are beautiful in the way a beach advertises the ocean, selective and without weather. I walk out to the terrace where the last of the decorations slouch against the breeze. A string of Edison bulbs sways like a jury taking its time. A white arch smothered in eucalyptus, and white roses faces rows of chairs. I imagine Ethan standing there in a suit he could never afford without my credit, saying vows in a voice that learned sincerity from a mirror. I imagine Chloe, radiant, perfect, whispering, "I do like a brand deal." I imagine my chair, empty. The groundskeeper pushes his cart past and nods the nod men give when acknowledging another man has been hit by something you can't lift. He doesn't ask questions. Why would he? The shrinking of other people's joy is not a shift anyone clocks in for. My phone buzzes in my pocket with a notification from Ethan's feed. A professionally lit photo of him and Chloe under this very arch, text reading, "We did it," and a paragraph about love choosing us when we're ready to receive it. Comments flood in. "Congratulations, you two. You're an inspiration." I type and delete 3 responses that would get me unfriended by an algorithm and maybe by my remaining friends. I put the phone away before my thumb writes something I can't edit later. On my way back through the ballroom, I stop at the champagne bucket and look at the 4 pale pieces half floating in warm gold. $1 million can do amazing things. It can buy houses with better roofs and medical treatments without waiting lists and time, especially time. Today it bought me clarity. That's cheaper than I expected and more expensive than I wanted. I grab a single program from the stack and tuck it into my jacket because I have a weakness for documentation. At the door, the clerk lifts her head and almost speaks, then decides not to. I push into the afternoon, which has developed the kind of late-day glare that makes the parking lot look like a stage between scenes. On the front steps, I pause and let the air clear my head. I'm not a man for speeches or scenes. I'm a man for lists and tools. My sadness shows up in irritation because it gets more done that way. I tuck the program under my arm and mutter to no one, or maybe to the columns, or maybe to the version of Ethan that knew my phone number by heart. You married money you can't afford. The drive home tastes like metal. I keep my hands at 10 and 2 like a teenager trying not to get pulled over by fate. In the garage, I hang the suit jacket on a nail, as if it's committed a crime and needs thinking time. Then I sit at the kitchen table with a legal pad and a pen that writes like it has opinions. I title the page with the only word that makes sense to a man like me: costs. Line by line, I pull receipts from a folder I keep for family, which lately has felt like a tax bracket more than a tribe. Deposit to Elmwood House, $50,000, paid from my checking on a Friday when Chloe said, "We're short this week." Catering second payment, $22,000. String quartet retainer, 3. Photographer deposit, 5. Floral design, 8. Chloe's planner fee, she called it a coordination package like she was scheduling satellites, $6,000, half paid. Bar package overage retainer, 4. Lighting design the venue insisted on because ambiance is memory, 5. Tuxedo rental for Ethan because he wanted the look, even though we own a suit I could have let out and steamed, 1 and change. I make a second column, outstanding. Venue final payment due in 10 days upon certificate filing. Planner final fee due 72 hours after event. Florist balance on delivery. Photographer balance on final proofs. Bar tab true up 48 hours after close. I circle that one. True up is a nice word for you drink like honesty is contagious. I log into accounts the way a man checks fences after coyotes have been sighted. Automatic payments sit there, jaunty little toggles in green. I click them to gray one by one. It's not even dramatic. No warning sound, no alarm. Just a quiet slide from yes to no. The venue's auto draft is tied to my card because I thought generosity had training wheels. I remove the card, re-enter a wrong number on purpose, and leave it like a decoy. The planner invoice portal wants a tip. I send it a blank stare. The florist answers on the second ring. I tell her I'm halting residuals until I receive itemized proof of delivery and a signed acknowledgement from the couple. She says she understands. She's seen worse. The bar manager is newer to disappointment. He argues until he realizes I'm not angry, I'm patient. It bothers him more. I forward copies of contracts to a new folder I name Oxygen and share with no one. Then I compose 3 short emails, to Elmwood's billing office, to the planner's finance desk, to a generic info for the photographer. The subject line is the same: request to suspend post-event disbursements pending verification. The body is friendlier. Appreciate your work, kindly pause final processing while I reconcile ledgers. I don't say why. People fill silences with the truth they fear. By noon, my phone is a nest of notifications. The venue replies first, cheerful, clipped, saying they'll await updated remittance instructions. The planner sends a canned answer about net 30 terms and a heart emoji as if feelings balance ledgers. The bartender's assistant, who signs his emails with a martini glass, says he'll be relaying to management with the urgency of a man jogging on a treadmill. I drive to the yard after lunch because the only cure for humiliation is lifting something heavy that can't lie. The guys are in their usual habits. Coffee burned beyond recognition, donuts with frosting you could caulk a window with, and the kind of laughter that turns hard when it sees the foreman. They quiet when I come in, then remember who they are and go back to the stories. I catch my name halfway through a sentence. Said the old man didn't show. Nate glances up, guilty. Boss, don't sprain your conscience, I tell him, dropping my thermos on the table. If you're going to talk about me, do it loudly so I can correct the grammar. He smirks and flips his phone around. On the screen, Chloe's curated world. We did it, she captioned yesterday's post. Same arch, same petals, the same arm I raised that kid with, missing from the frame. Today she's added a reel, getting ready shots, bridesmaids weeping as if they've been chosen for something sacred rather than choreographed. In one clip, Ethan laughs out of frame and someone says, "Your dad's going to cry," and a voice that could be Chloe's answers, "If he shows." Laughter, soft and expensive. People are saying you skipped, Nate says, cautious. I'm trending as the absent father? I ask, because if there's a mountain of salt nearby, I might as well climb it. He nods, thumbs flicking. Local group page took it and ran. You're a monster to about 12 people, and a hero to 9 whose kids also grew up into brands. The guys laugh too loud at that. I sit, sip coffee that fights back, and scroll. Comments thick as hornets. Where was he? Does he even love his son? Maybe he doesn't approve of Chloe. Maybe he's old school. Maybe he's cheap. One woman writes a paragraph about toxic masculinity that uses the word erasure like it has teeth. Another posts a blurry photo of me buying screws at the hardware store last week and captions it, "He had time for this." I'm a meme now. Welcome to the modern ledger of character, likes and guesses. I lock the screen and put the phone face down. The table smells like sugar and engine grease. Around us, forklifts beep politely to warn of danger that never listens. I tell Nate to check the order on the rebar for Thursday. He asks if we're still doing the municipal lot pour on Friday. Unless the town moves it to yesterday, I say, and my laugh scrapes a little on the way out. Back at the house, I haul the suit to the washer like a criminal to the river. I set it down on the machine and think better of laundering regret. Into the closet it goes, still wearing the faint perfume of a foyer where I wasn't invited to stand. I sit at the desk and make another list because control looks best in ink. Vendors likely to call: florist, bar, planner, photographer, venue billing. Secondary: chair rental, linens, shuttle company, valet service, string quartet, officiant. Action items: cancel auto drafts, request reconciliation statements, require invoices to be addressed to the couple and not to me. Addendum: call bank to limit daily transfer thresholds. Switch to alerts for any charge above 500. It reads like paranoia until you remember how fast money evaporates when people assume it's raining. The first truly angry email arrives at 3:19 from the planner herself. She drops the emoji and switches to professional knives. Per our agreement, Mr. Dalton, balances are due on delivery. Your unilateral suspension places us in a difficult position with our own vendors. I write back within the minute with a scanned copy of the clause she didn't expect me to read. Payments due upon signed acceptance by client. I circle client and underline, not me. She doesn't reply. I take a walk to clear the room out of my head. The neighborhood feels like a movie set that's lost its extras. A man walks his dog while listening to a podcast about mindsets that never had to lift a pipe wrench. 2 kids throw a football badly and blame the air. I pass the diner. Inside, the afternoon trade sits on cracked vinyl. A couple of heads turn. I am recognized in the way small towns recognize a fresh accident. At the counter, Liz the waitress smiles like she's practiced every expression that keeps the tips flowing and kept only the ones that work. Tough weekend, Mike? Bit of scheduling confusion, I say. She tops off my coffee and leans in. If I had a nickel for every bride who thought the world's a stage, I'd own this place. Want pie? I want a piece of time back, I say, but I'll try apple. She cuts it generous and walks away before pity can find a place to sit. I eat slow because sugar steadies the hands better than preaching. On my way out, 2 women at a corner booth fall silent like guilty radios. One of them clears her throat as if asking permission from the air. "Saw the post," she says. "If it's any consolation, my father walked me down the aisle and then took my husband aside and told him I wasn't easy. Sometimes showing up is worse." "Noted," I say, and mean it, and leave them to their late-day kindness. When I get home, the contractor's voicemail light is blinking. It's the bar manager again, trying on a bolder tone. He hints at late fees like I'll be scared of the dark. I call him back and walk him through his own contract while he tries to find a cliff to jump off that has soft grass underneath. By the end, he agrees to invoice the couple directly. I add a note to my pad: "Bar, rerouted." In the evening, I sweep the garage not because it needs it, but because the motion turns down the static in my head. The broom finds lost screws, a washer I needed last month, and a penny too new to spend. I line up sockets by size like soldiers who would rather be screws. The radio murmurs a ball game and then breaks for news that includes exactly 4 seconds about a controversial family moment at a high-end venue last night. No names. The important stories rarely have them at first. Night handles glare better than afternoon. I sit at the desk again, open the bank portal, and watch the numbers sit there like cows in a field that haven't yet heard the thunder. I adjust transfer limits down another notch. I cancel one more subscription Ethan set up when he was still in school and calling it Family Cloud. I export a report to a flash drive and drop it into the metal box where we keep passports and the birth certificates of people who don't call. The house makes the sounds it knows: fridge motor, the soft click of the water heater, the quiet complaint of wood settling under years. I take a breath in that's deeper than the ones I've had today, and exhale onto the glass of the screen until it fogs and clears. The balance stare-back is unromantic and honest. $1 million gift check would have put a heroic shine on it. 4 wet pieces stunned a champagne bucket instead. Better this way. Heroes get statues. Statues get pigeons. I whisper to the empty room and the numbers that think they belong to everyone who knows my last name. Let's see how far gratitude travels without fuel. Then I close the laptop like a lid on a box that's finally labeled correctly. The morning begins with static. My phone hums on the nightstand before the alarm can pretend to matter. A dozen notifications stack like debt, mentions, tags, and one video thumbnail with Chloe's frozen smile, the kind that only happens before she throws someone under the bus. I click play. It's a gratitude reel, that special breed of online sincerity where every thank you hides a knife. Soft piano in the background, natural light, and Chloe talking to the camera like she's found religion in a ring light. "We're just overwhelmed by support," she says. "This wedding meant everything. We did it all ourselves. I had to overcome so much family tension." Her voice catches on the word like it's pulling a trigger. "But love wins. Always." Cut to her dabbing fake tears. Ethan enters, kisses her temple, murmurs, "It's behind us now." They both look at the camera as if absolution were a brand deal. I let the video play twice, once to feel the burn, once to count the lies. Every shot is framed to make me invisible. Even when I mentioned it's in the past tense, Dad had his struggles. Dad wasn't ready to let go. The comments swarm, sending strength, proud of your boundaries. Some people never change. I don't reply. You can't argue with an echo chamber that thinks it's a cathedral. By 8, I'm dressed for work, jeans and a jacket that smells of sawdust and independence. The coffee tastes bitter, or maybe I do. On the drive to the yard, I rehearse 3 versions of calm, none of which survive the red light on 3rd Street. The phone rings again. This time it's Dean Hollis, Ethan's business partner, part-time salesman, full-time survivor. "Hey, Mike," he says, too casual. "You still do mechanical work?" "Depends on the machinery," I say. "Server fans acting up at the office. Thought you might take a look since you're listed as, He pauses. "Since you're still on some of the paperwork." That gets my attention. "Paperwork," I repeat. "Meaning?" He coughs. Nothing big, just the lease for the studio equipment. You co-signed last year when Ethan said you'd back him. The lender needed a guarantor. It's minor, just a formality. You probably forgot. I didn't forget. I never signed anything after he turned 25. Send me the details, I tell him, keeping my voice steady. Sure thing, Dean says. Look, I didn't want to get in the middle, but he's been flashing your name on documents like it's his lucky charm. If things go south, they'll call you first. Appreciate the warning, I say. He doesn't need to know he just opened the first real door I've had in days. Back at the site, I sit in the cab of my truck and log into my email. There it is. Lease agreement, Dalton Marketing, LLC. My digital signature, copied from an old PDF I used for a property lien. I can tell by the uneven drag on the curve of the M, it's a forgery. Legal enough to fool a lazy lender, not good enough to survive scrutiny. The company's loan is tied to 3 pieces of equipment worth about 40 grand. Cameras, studio lights, editing rigs, all collateralized under my name. Ethan never told me. He probably thought I'd never notice, or maybe he assumed I'd be too sentimental to pull the plug. I open the leasing site, navigate to account authorization, and click the button marked Withdraw Guarantor Consent. It prompts for a reason. I type, unauthorized continuation of liability. It sounds dull enough to pass through bureaucracy quietly. Within seconds, an automated email confirms receipt. Verification pending, effective immediately. I lean back and let the quiet settle. This is what revenge looks like before it gets dressed up. Just paperwork and patience. No yelling, no fire, just a door gently closing on someone who thought it was stuck open. At lunch, I call Dean back. You might get some fallout, I tell him. Already seeing it, he says. Ethan's freaking out. Lender froze the auto draft. He's blaming a software glitch. Tell him to reboot his conscience, I say. Dean laughs, nervous. You're not really going to... I'm not going to anything, I interrupt. I already did. After the call, I walk the site's perimeter. The men are laying rebar for a new foundation, metal crossing metal like a nervous tick in the earth. I've done this work half my life, watching patterns become strength. You tie every joint right, you can take weight without breaking, you skip a line, and the whole thing sags under pressure. Families aren't so different. Ethan skipped a lot of lines. By 3, my phone buzzes again. It's a text from Ethan. No punctuation, just rage trying to fit inside a sentence. Dad, you just killed our operations. I stare at the words for a long time before replying. The sun glints off the steel frame nearby, a flash of brightness on rust. I type slowly, so there's no mistake. You started the funeral. The message sends, the dots appear, then vanish. I know that silence. It's the sound of a man learning gravity exists. I pocket the phone and watch the crew tighten the last of the ties. There's a rhythm to their work, measured, deliberate, inevitable. You can't rush concrete. It cures when it's ready, not before. Revenge works the same way. They come in hot, the way people do when they think the camera is armor. Noon sun, hard shadows, the gate still rolling open when Ethan ducks under it like a teenager. Chloe follows, already filming, phone at arm's length, ring light clipped on like a halo that forgot what halos are for. Behind them, a rideshare idles at the curb, driver watching the show he didn't buy tickets for. The yard wasn't built for glamour. It's all crushed stone, orange cones, rebar stacks, forklifts stepping around pallets like patient dinosaurs. Diesel air, wind tugging at caution tape. Men in hard hats slowing just enough to enjoy the kind of reality TV that doesn't need a subscription. I'm by the tool cage signing out a torque wrench when Ethan spots me. He lifts his voice to the volume you use for dogs and microphones. There he is, he says, which is funny because I've never been anywhere else. You think you can shut down my business? I didn't shut anything, I say, without turning. I signed off what never belonged to you. Chloe pivots the phone to catch both our faces. She's already crying a little, the efficient kind of crying that reads well on screens. "We're live," she announces to nobody here and everyone out there. "We're confronting my husband's abusive father." A laugh escapes me the way a nail sometimes pops out of wood on its own. "If I'm abusive, you're safe," I say. I keep my hands in my pockets. Ethan advances, shoulders square, suit jacket the color of bad decisions. "Withdraw the guarantor, or I'll sue you for sabotage." "You can sue gravity while you're at it," I tell him. "It keeps knocking you down." Nate leans on a stack of plywood and whispers too loudly to the guy beside him. $10 says she turns the waterworks on him. The guy says, "Which waterworks?" And I remember the hose system on the east wall, a line we use for dust control, pressure we keep because fines are expensive. Chloe steps closer, stretching her arm to keep the phone in my face. "Admit you forged our signatures," she says. "Admit you're trying to ruin our lives because you can't handle your son's success." "You forged mine," I say, "and success doesn't squeal this much when you squeeze it." The forklift nearest the gate is pointing the wrong way for safety. I wave 2 fingers at Luis, the operator, then point to the chalked rectangle by the entrance. He nods, eases forward, and parks sideways. A second forklift mirrors the move on the other side. The opening narrows to not quite a car width, room for a person, not a tantrum. Ethan glances at the machines and then at me, calculating like there's a door I'm hiding. "Blocking us in?" he says, a triumphant note rising like steam from a cracked pipe. "False imprisonment." "Safety perimeter," I reply, tapping the posted sign. "Visitors must be escorted." "You came in unescorted. I'm solving your problem." He gestures wide to the crew. "You all seeing this? This is how he treats family." Nate shrugs. "He treats us better. We wear vests." Chloe barks at her phone. "Drop a comment if you've ever been gaslit." Someone off screen, maybe her own conscience, says, "You can't ask for comments about gaslighting," but she's past edits. She plants her feet, lifts her chin, and declares, "We won 30,000 followers last week. We'll win this too." I point at the dust plume rising from the rebar saw. "You're about to win bronchitis. Step back or put on a mask." "Don't tell my wife what to do," Ethan snaps. "Fine," I say. "Chloe, stand there and breathe in steel." A siren chirps. Not police. Our forklift backup alarm catching a bump. The sound slices the air. Everyone looks. I use the moment. The hose valve is 10 paces away, red wheel scuffed from years. I walk toward it like I'm bored. Nobody stops a man who looks like he's about to do maintenance. It reads as background noise. Chloe mistakes the calm for concession, steps after me, narrating to her phone. "See? We're resolving this like adults," she says. "We're teaching boundaries in real time." I spin the valve a quarter turn. The line shudders. The first nozzle coughs a mist along the fence. The second fires a clean sheet of water across the yard to the east wall where we hose down aggregate. The third, my favorite, catches a crosswind and arcs gracefully toward Chloe's outstretched arm. It's not a fire hose. It's just enough pressure to baptize technology. The water hits the ring light dead center. The light sparks, whimpers, and dies. Her phone takes the brunt next. The case is water-resistant, which is another way of saying optimistic. Chloe screams, a high sound that draws every eye and 2 crows. She pulls the phone to her chest like a lifeline and glares at me through dripping lashes. "You assaulted me," she says. "I irrigated the air," I answer. "Dust mitigation per city code. You stepped into the plume." Ethan lunges, grabbing for the valve, but he grabs the wrong wheel, the one marked Outlet Purge, and blasts his shoes with a historic, humiliating jet. The crew groans in collective empathy, the way men do when they've seen someone ruin suede. Someone claps once, very sincerely. "Get out," I say, not loud, not angry. "You're in a hard hat zone without hard hats, and I don't carry spare logic." Chloe, soaked and furious, takes a step like she's going to slap the water itself. "We're suing," she spits. "We'll take your yard, your house, your sentence structure," I offer. Ethan points at the forklifts again, his brain stuck on the only word he learned in a parking dispute. "False imprisonment." "Gates open," I say, nodding at the narrow human-width gap between pallet stacks. "You came in with a car. You leave like a person." He looks at the gap, at his wet shoes, at the ring of cameras that are now, hilariously, not his. The men aren't filming, but the yard has its own eyes. 8 dome cameras perched on poles blinking red, catching OSHA, insurance, and today, family theater. One of the newer guys, a kid who still believes in plot arcs, whispers, "This is better than lunch." And I make a mental note to remind him later that safety videos aren't entertainment unless they end with lessons. Chloe hugs her dead phone and switches to the backup, her voice. "You're a bully," she declares. "You've always been a bully. You skipped your own son's wedding and now you're blocking our livelihood." "Skipped isn't the word," I say. "Crowded out is closer. And livelihood doesn't count if you borrowed someone else's life to make it." Ethan edges toward me, hands fisted, theatrically careful not to swing. He wants me to push him. He wants a bruise for content. I keep my arms at my sides like a man waiting for a bus. "You did this," he says, low now, private beneath the public. "You made me do this." "Son," I answer, "if I could make you do anything, this yard would be quieter." For one bright second, I think he might laugh. He doesn't. He swallows whatever's left of his pride and storms toward the gap between forklifts. He squeezes through with all the grace of a coat hanger being born. Chloe follows, shoulders stiff, jaw set to the angle reserved for PR crises. As they pass, the wind catches the hose spray and adds one last mean little kiss to the back of her dress. She gasps like betrayal just learned to fly. At the gate, Ethan turns back, ready for his final line. "We'll make sure everyone sees what you did." "Good," I say, pointing to the nearest security dome. "They'll see it from multiple angles. High definition, time-stamped, no filters." They are half in, half out, stuck in the geometry of consequence. A driver honks from the street. Chloe flinches. Ethan glares. They disappear through the gap like toothpaste deciding to be obedient. The yard exhales. The men don't cheer. They go back to work the way soldiers go back to cleaning rifles after the idiot lieutenant leaves. Nate sidles up with a rag slung over his shoulder. "You want me to pull the security clips before they get overwritten?" "No," I say. "Let them sit. The system backs up overnight anyway." He grins. "You're playing the long game." "I'm just letting clocks be clocks." I turn off the hose, and the spray collapses into lazy drips. The ring light on the gravel looks like a halo in need of confession. I pick it up, set it on the bench near the tool cage, and tape a note to it. Lost and drowned. Finders keepers until claimed by dignity. Inside the office, I pull the footage on my screen out of habit. 4 angles, gate, tool cage, east wall, valve line. There's the arc of water catching the phone like a magician's reveal. There's Ethan's shoe bath, majestic in slow motion. I scrub the timeline back and forth until the numbers blur and the shapes become just shapes. This is what memory looks like before people sharpen it to stab. By sundown, an anonymous account on the town forum posts a clip. Father soaks influencer's camera in safety dispute. Faces blurred, but the silhouettes are obvious to anyone who knows us, which is too many people. Someone adds slow-motion piano. Someone else adds laugh track. I don't comment. I don't have to. The clip is its own sermon. As the sky goes violet over the crane line, I clock out, pocket my keys, and walk to the truck. The gravel crunches the way it always has. The forklifts rest in their chalked squares like animals that remember the work they were bred for. At the gate, I pause. The street smells like cut grass and fried food from the diner 2 blocks over. Ethan and Chloe are long gone. Their rideshare driver probably has a story to tell his next passenger that starts with, "You won't believe." The men will tell their versions at dinner tables where kids ask if they can see the video. The planner will hear about it third hand and draft a statement. The venue will file it under this town's reliable exports: steel, rumor, and small victories. I start the engine, let it settle into that old, honest idle, and roll toward the street. The security light over the gate snaps on, a square of yellow that makes the dust look like gold for exactly 2 seconds. I smile at the trick of it, at how light makes fools of us all, and say to the empty cab, "Content always needs conflict. You're welcome." Then I turn left into the evening, letting the yard shrink in the side mirror until it's just a block of geometry I don't have to carry. Miles Avery's porch sags the way old men smile, honestly. He's in a lawn chair with a legal pad and a sweating bottle of ginger ale, tie loosened, shoes off, socks with little anchors, like he's retired from something nobler than suing contractors. He waves me up the steps with the authority of a judge who downgraded to deck furniture. "You look like a man who needs the law without the courtroom," he says. "I need a wrench made of paper," I answer, sitting. The afternoon carries cut grass and printer ink. "Trusteeship revision. 2 names off. Mine stays on." He nods, already writing. "You put Ethan and Chloe on the estate last year, provisional trustees. For convenience, you said. Convenience is Latin for mistake. We'll fix it." He pulls a battered folder from under the chair, like he keeps emergency law for guests. "Revocation of successor trustees effective upon notice. No cause needed if the instrument allows. Yours does. People forget I wrote the first draft." "I didn't," I say. "I forget the taste of peace. I don't forget signatures." He prints slow, talks faster. "We'll file notice with the county, notify your bank's estate services, and send certified letters to the happy couple. No drama if we keep it bone dry. Your reasons are none of their business." He pauses, looks up. "You want them out of the healthcare proxy too?" "Already removed," I say. "I like my breathing decided by professionals." He grunts approval. "Smart." I read while he types. Clean clauses, dates, a neat little guillotine built from clauses nobody reads until the blade drops. He adds a line I love instantly. "Any prior delegation is hereby rescinded and void." It hums like a fuse. He prints 3 copies, slides me a pen older than my son's conscience. "Sign here, here, and on the copy for the bank." I sign. The ink dries with quiet satisfaction. "Anything else?" he says, "or will we content ourselves with structural integrity?" "A small draft," I say. "Anonymous. Compliance teams love anonymous, not criminal, just messy." Ethan's sponsored content looks a lot like undeclared business revenue. If the brand thinks he miscategorized, they'll pause to audit partner performance. Gently starve the machine. Miles smiles with half his mouth. "You really did raise that boy. You know where the joists are." He opens his laptop, pulls up a contact sheet that's longer than a choir roster. "Brand legal emails. You give me dates, links, screenshots. I compose a hymn they can't ignore." I hand him a thumb drive labeled Varnish. Captions, timestamps, affiliate links that never hit the LLC ledger. Again, not illegal, just not reconciled. He skims. "This is catnip for compliance. We don't allege fraud. We ask questions with receipts." He drafts 3 notes, all similar, all different enough to avoid copy-paste filters. We've noticed discrepancies between posted deliverables and disclosed consideration. Public filings don't reflect the sponsored activations recorded here. Please confirm that partners' revenue recognition matches contractual terms. He hits send with a surgeon's calm. And now we let their lawyers practice mindfulness. The pause will hurt more than any headline. I fold the trusteeship packet into an envelope that says something like future with a different handwriting. We walk it to the corner box. The metal throat swallows it with that hollow clunk that sounds like justice stretched thin, but holding. Back at his porch, Miles pours 2 fingers of something amber into plastic cups. To boredom, he says. It wins more wars than rage. To ink, I add. It travels further than shouting. On my way to the truck, my phone buzzes. Chloe's brand grid suddenly sprouts gray squares. Partnership paused, partnership paused, partnership under review. The captions go from sunshine to taking time offline to center. Translation: the money ran out of adjectives. The bar manager emails a thank you for clarifying remittance. He's invoiced Chloe directly and already received a terse reply promising payment post-campaign. He CCs me uninvited, a petty kindness I appreciate. At the bank, the estate services clerk takes the packet with both hands as if weight proves importance. She stamps, scans, clicks, and says, "Effective immediately, successors removed, file numbers on your receipt." I sign the log. She offers a sympathetic smile people reserve for widowers and men who built their own trap. "Family," she says, and lets the word die with dignity. On the drive home, I pass the high school. 2 girls on the steps film a dance that will be obsolete by dinner. A teacher watches through the glass with the exhausted benevolence of someone who assigns essays knowing only half will be read twice. The world documents itself now. The trick is being the one who writes the captions. I stop by the post office for certified slips. The clerk knows me well enough to skip small talk. I address 2 envelopes to Ethan and Chloe, drop them in, and pocket the receipts like lottery tickets for people who prefer certainty. 3 blocks later, my phone rings. Ethan. I let it buzz once, twice, then answer with the neutrality of a well-swept floor. "You ruined us," he shouts, skipping the warm-up. "You got our contracts paused, the bank flagged our accounts, and Dean says the studio's on hold. You can't just rip everything away because you're mad." "I built you," I say, calm as a level. "I know the weak beams." "You're my father." He spits, like it's a clause I violated. "You're supposed to support me." "I did," I say. "You confused scaffolding for a permanent building." He goes quiet for a beat, breathing hard. Then he tries a new angle. "Take us off your estate, really? That's petty." "It's plumbing," I tell him. "I found leaks. I closed valves." "You think the internet doesn't see what you're doing?" he asks. "You're the villain now." I look at the road ahead, clean and straight between maples that haven't forgiven winter. Someone had to do the work, I say, and end the call before his next script arrives. At home, I place the stamped estate copies in the metal box with passports and birth certificates. The lid shuts with a click that sounds like a door tested and trusted. In the kitchen, the radio mutters about market futures and a minor league score. I pour coffee that's been sitting too long and drink it anyway. You learn to stomach what keeps you upright. My email pings. 3 brands reply within the hour. "Thank you for the heads up. We have paused deliverables pending internal review. Our legal team will follow up if discrepancies are confirmed. None accuse, none praise. All do what I counted on them to do. Stop the flow." I walk the house with the quiet pride of a man who just tightened bolts nobody else noticed were loose. Beyond the windows, the light fades the way it always does, indifferent and exact. I sit at the desk, open my notebook, and add a line under today's date. Trustees revoked. Contracts paused. Oxygen rerouted. The phone buzzes once more, a text from an unknown number with a screenshot of Chloe's story. Pausing for self-care. The photo shows a candle, a journal, and a pen so expensive it refuses to write truth. I forward nothing. I capture everything. Paper beats fire as long as you keep it dry. I close the notebook and listen to the house breathe. Refrigerator, water heater, wind worrying the gutters. It sounds stable again, as if the foundation remembered how to hold. Out loud, to no one but the wood and the wires, I say, weights back on the right studs. Then I let the quiet sit, heavy and earned, while somewhere across town, two people learn that applause is on a timer and mine just ran out. By morning, the town has done what towns do, turned rumor into choreography. The local tabloid site runs a headline with more exclamation points than verbs. Dalton duo in trouble? Sources say brand deals. Paused, vendors unpaid. The piece is 6 paragraphs of recycled captions and a neighbor reported, but it's sticky enough to catch a few flies. The comments are the real story. People with usernames like TruthMom77 and Fiscal Hawk weigh in like they've audited my family for years. An old photo of Ethan and me resurfaced, me holding a drill, him holding a latte, and someone captions it. One of these is a tool. I set the phone face down on the table before I tell the internet what it can do with its wit. By 9, the radio morning show is laughing about influencers who forget invoices. The host asks if love languages include net 30. His co-host cackles. I make coffee and let it go bitter on purpose. Across town, I can picture Chloe rearranging her living room for a statement video, deciding which part of the couch looks most credible. The world doesn't ask much of someone who looks like an apology. The world asks everything of a man who looks like a bill. I drive to the diner because news is easier to swallow with eggs. The bell over the door hiccups a greeting, and the smell hits me. Coffee you could tar a roof with, bacon that died for a just cause, bleach pretending to be citrus. A stack of tabloids sits by the register. The top one has my last name in a font reserved for bad actors and lottery winners. I take a booth and the paper, because if you're going to be accused by your neighbors, you should at least learn their grammar. Liz slides me a mug and the laminated menu with the corners chewed by time. You look like a headline, she says. I prefer footnote, I answer. Less surveillance. She tips her chin at the paper. They saying you're suing them. Nope, I say, turning a page. I'm just charging rent on my mistakes. She smiles the tired smile of people who've outlived worse. Pancakes help with everything except diabetes. 2 eggs over, rye. Give the pancakes to the kid who looks like hope. I nod at a teenager inhaling syrup at the counter, earbuds in, hoodie up, half here and nowhere at once. Liz pours more coffee. You know I hate being right, she says, but I told you that girl would monetize her vows. She didn't monetize, I say. She securitized. From the booth behind me, 2 contractors argue about a brick pattern. Between their voices, I scroll more headlines. A regional gossip site quotes a brand insider saying deliverables are paused pending compliance review. A freelance photographer posts that his invoice bounced and he's done shooting aspirational content for people who can't count. The florist from the venue writes something elegant about art and balance due. The planner stays quiet, probably on the phone with a mentor who specializes in adversity narratives. My food comes. The eggs are imperfect, which means a human made them, which is the only prerequisite I have for anything anymore. I eat slow, tasting the relief of chewing. Across the room, a man in a suit reads the same tabloid and whispers to his phone like he's practicing gossip for a court date. The kid at the counter finishes his pancakes and looks around for someone to confirm that fullness is a form of happiness. No one does, so he leaves a tip that says he's been taught something. Mid-bite, my phone vibrates with a courier of pings. Vendors. The bar manager. Deferred payment notice sent to the couple. The florist. Courtesy reminder issued, CC'd to you for your records. The lighting rental company. As per your request, we've updated the billing contact to the client. Terms unchanged. Short, polite, relentless. Every message is a carabiner clipping into a rope I set just right. Then a different tone. Dean. He texts a photo of their office hallway. Boxes stacked. A handwritten sign on a door reading, Do not enter. Inventory audit. He captions it. This is what happens when you try to outsource integrity. For a second I consider telling him to resign before the splashback stains him. Then I remember he's a grown man, and his choices don't need a parent. On the diner TV, muted, the morning show rolls B-roll of sparkling wine and ring lights. The chyron says, "Are influencers over?" as if the answer isn't always no, until someone unsexier learns to sell the same lie. I pay my bill with cash because some rituals should remain analog, and slide Liz a 5 over what she's owed. She looks at it, then at me. "I'll add a side of decency to your tab," she says. Outside, the air is 5 degrees colder than the internet. My phone buzzes again. This time, it's Chloe. A fresh story. A close-up of manicured fingers tracing a journal with the words in gold. Gratitude, not grief. The next slide is a selfie video. She's teary at the edges. Posture perfect. Voice pitched for concern. "We're stepping back to focus on what matters," she says. "We have been bullied and lied about by people who should protect us. We don't need to name him." She names me anyway, stealthy as a billboard. Some fathers can't handle their son's success. She's good. She knows how to lean into a wound so people will rush to stop the bleeding with their credit cards. The comments flood in. "Stay strong, Queen. Men are threatened by power. Sending light." Then a few dissenters float up. "Pay your photographer." "Did you write 'sponsored' on your taxes? Why is the check in the background?" I squint. On her wall, half hidden by a potted plant, something white and torn is taped artfully to a corkboard. 4 crumpled quarters of paper arranged like a mood board. My check. She's turned it into decor. The caption on that frame reads, poetically, "Aesthetic reminder, you can build yourself." I zoom in until the pixels block the world. The numbers are gone, the signature line dead. All that remains is the shape of a decision and the texture of paper that used to feel like relief. I pull back before I say something stupid to a slab of glass. More vendor pings arrive. The quartet's manager writes, "Regretfully, without settlement of balance, we will pursue small claims per contract paragraph 9. The valet company sends a PDF titled Outstanding Reconciliation, Horizontal, which is a cruel little joke about how wide the number is. The venue's billing office finally replies with the sentence I knew was coming. Per your suspension request, we have ceased automatic disbursements. We await remittance information from the couple. I call Miles to let him know the bridge is holding. He answers with classical music in the background and a sigh that says he's already 3 chess moves ahead. Compliance team's nibbling? Biting, I say. Also, she taped the torn check to her wall for ambiance. He chuckles, the sound of a man who has cross-examined worse displays of taste. Self-incrimination by interior design. The courts will appreciate the visual aid. I'm not going to court. I know, he says. I'm just enjoying the concept of consequence. On the way back to the yard, I take the long route past Elmwood. The staff is setting up for another event. This one smaller, less shiny. A bride in a denim jacket shivers and laughs with her maid of honor, cheeks pink, hair refusing to obey the wind. Her father stands off to the side, rubbing his hands together, watching the way men watch bridges and daughters. He sees me watching him, and we nod like we both recognize how fragile weight can be. At the yard, the guys are unloading steel from a flatbed, the kind of work my body understands better than most conversations. I grab gloves and help for an hour, because nothing resets a man like moving something that fights back and loses. Between loads, Nate shows me a new thread on the town forum. Vendors swapping notes, sharing contracts, comparing dates. A few threaten to file liens on future earnings, which is a category that belongs to astrology, not accounting. They'll settle for attention until cash arrives, which it won't. After the shift, I call the florist again, not to push, just to check. She tells me Chloe replied with a 1-sentence promise, payment pending resolution of family harassment. The florist sighs like a winter door. She thinks words are invoices. She's not alone, I say. Half the internet makes a living that way. Evening arrives like it had an appointment. I sit at my kitchen counter with a yellow legal pad and do what I do when the noise gets loud. Write a list. Payments rerouted. Trusteeship revoked. Brands paused. Vendor thread. Hold steady. Dean's photo. Save. Check as art. Document. Underline that one twice so I remember where the line crossed from cruelty to performance art. The house breathes around me, old wood settling. The phone buzzes again. This time it's a clip of Chloe's full crying video, posted to a wider platform by someone who couldn't resist the gravity of spectacle. She sits on her couch, hair messy on purpose, sweater large enough to suggest vulnerability, but not unfashionable enough to offend sponsors. She speaks about cycles of pain and standing up to patriarchal control. Over her shoulder, my torn check watches like a saint made of cellulose. I get up and pour water into a glass I don't need. The faucet runs clear, honest. I drink. When I sit back down, I watch the video one more time, not to feel anything, but to measure. There's a rhythm to lies told for a crowd. 3 seconds of eye contact, 2 of breath, 1 of revelation, cut to silence. She lands every beat. Comments fill in on cue. The last frame freezes on her face, eyes glossy, chin lifted, jaw firm. Behind her, taped midair, 4/4 of a future I refunded to myself. I reach for the remote and turn off the sound. The picture lingers. In the quiet, the room finally admits it's mine again, and I let the rehook do its job. I take out my phone, capture a screenshot of that background, crop carefully so there's no doubt, and save it in a new folder labeled Decor. Then I slide the phone across the counter like a card I won't play yet and say to the empty house, because it deserves the words more than she does, "You really picked the wrong thing to keep." By the time the storm hit, it wasn't weather, it was consequence. The tabloids had stopped being curious and started being hungry. Every platform replayed the crying video. The sympathy was starting to curdle. Someone noticed that Chloe's charity donations hadn't cleared. Someone else found a vendor who'd been paid in expired brand gift cards. The public smell of rot attracts a particular kind of audience, the ones who never liked you but love an excuse. Ethan's desperation finally caught up with his body. One night, the security feed at my warehouse pinged, motion detected. I opened the camera app, expecting raccoons. But there was my son, crowbar in hand, sweating under the cheap LED flood. He wasn't stealing money, he was stealing equipment. Branded studio lights, the same ones bought under my credit line, serial numbers still on file. I watched him drag one case toward the loading door, his movements clumsy and scared. Old anger stirred, but colder now, quieter, like a machine warming up. I drove down in the rain. No sirens, no theatrics. The warehouse was a long black ribcage against the storm. I parked by the bay and watched him from the cab for a minute. How he kept glancing at his phone for light. How he whispered to himself. He looked like a man trying to fix his life with a screwdriver he didn't know how to hold. I stepped inside, boots echoing. "If you wanted the keys," I said, "you could have asked." He spun, dropped the crowbar, his wrist twisting under him as he fell. The sound that followed wasn't pain yet, it was disbelief, that moment when your body realizes pride isn't armor. He groaned, clutching his wrist. "You attacked me," he hissed. "I walked in," I said. "Gravity did the rest." He tried to stand, eyes wide and calculating. "You're on camera," he said, pointing toward the security dome. "You'll regret this." "I count on it," I said, and leaned against a forklift, thumb tapping the ignition. The machine hummed alive, yellow lights sweeping the wet concrete. "You want to take my things? Fine. Try to leave with them." He made it 10 feet before the first crate rolled into his path, another 10 before I angled the forklift to block the bay door. It wasn't violence, not even close. It was choreography, steel, physics, and poor planning. When he tried to push past, his bad wrist gave out again. I shut the machine down, walked over, and knelt. "You're better at running your mouth than your body," I said. "You can't steal what already owes me." He screamed for help, voice cracking just enough to sound like a performance. 2 minutes later, flashing lights reflected off the rain outside. Officer Nora Pierce stepped in, soaked, calm, eyes darting between us. "Again?" she asked. I raised my hands. He broke in. I called it performance art. Ethan waved his arm like a flag of the wounded. He tried to crush me. Pierce looked around, noting the untouched walls, the lack of bruises. "You fell," she said, deadpan. "If you want to press charges, I'll file a report. If you want to stop embarrassing yourself, I'll walk you out." He muttered something about suing everyone, stumbled to the exit, clutching his wrist. Pierce watched him go, then turned to me. "You know they'll push back hard." "So will gravity," I said. She exhaled through her nose. "You really don't know when to quit, do you?" "Sure I do," I said. "Just not yet." A week later, Grace called. My daughter, the quiet one who escaped this circus early. Her voice came thin through the speaker, like guilt had weight. "Dad," she said, "there's something you should know. Chloe forged your signature on some of the vendor contracts. I saw her do it. I filmed it. I didn't stop her." I closed my eyes, felt the old ache in my chest, the kind that used to mean disappointment but now just meant arithmetic. "Why tell me now?" "Because they're blaming you for it," she said. "I'm tired of watching lies eat people." "You filmed it?" I asked. "Yes. I sent it to the florist and the planner. They're furious. I didn't want it public." "It will be," I said. "But not by me." The vendors did the rest. Within 48 hours, screenshots and email threads surfaced everywhere. Contracts with mismatched signatures, forged authorizations, receipts showing my name in fonts I'd never used. The internet turned forensic. Ethan tried to spin it as clerical confusion, but his explanations read like graffiti in an earthquake. He posted a reel that night, standing in his half-empty living room, voice full of rage and cologne. "You can't cancel family," he said. I watched it twice and muttered, "Already did." 2 days later, Chloe announced a charity gala to reclaim the narrative. It was bold, even for her. Black tie, sponsors, tickets, a redemption tour disguised as philanthropy. I went, of course. Not invited, not expected, just present. The hotel ballroom smelled like perfume and panic. Reporters hovered like bees over spilled champagne. Chloe stood on stage, sequined, all smiles, thanking partners for their faith. Ethan lingered near the bar, stiff drink, stiffer grin. When I walked in, a few heads turned, not sure whether to whisper or record. I carried a leather briefcase and a kind of calm you can't fake. When the speeches started, I waited until the applause hit its polite peak. Then I walked down the aisle, handed envelopes to the press row, copies of every vendor invoice I'd paid, every deposit from my account, receipts, clean and cold. "Public record," I said, since they like transparency. As Chloe began her speech about healing, the projector behind her flickered. The screen lit up. Not her slides, not her brand reel, but a video. Her voice, sharp and mocking, recorded before the wedding. "He's showing up in that cheap suit," she said. "Maybe we'll seat him behind the caterers." The audience froze. Someone gasped. The video played on, unedited. "He thinks writing checks makes him family. We'll be fine once the ink dries." The room went silent, except for the hum of cameras and the soft, desperate sound of Chloe's breathing. Ethan lunged toward the tech booth, shouting to cut the feed, but the damage was done. Guests stood, whispering. Reporters filmed every second. I walked out as security tried to restore order. My phone buzzed. Nora again. Her text, "You planning to end it?" I replied, "One more show." The show was at Elmwood House, the same venue where the wedding should have been. They called it a forgiveness ceremony. I called it predictable. They invited the press, hired a new planner, and tried to rebuild their public image with apology speeches and floral symmetry. It was supposed to be a clean slate. I didn't give them one. I waited until the vows began. Then I pulled the main breaker from the service box outside. The lights died mid-sentence. Gasps, confusion, flashlights from phones flickering like 1,000 guilty fireflies. When the backup generator tried to hum, I replaced the feed on the projector with a single slide, the original wedding invoice. My name on every line item, venue, decor, catering, sound. Paid in full. The crowd went quiet again, reading it like scripture. Then Ethan saw me in the back, just standing there. He moved fast, too fast for his ego. He charged, shouting, camera phones rising to catch the finale. I sidestepped. He hit the slick tile and slid into the decorative fountain, splashing like a cartoon villain mid-dive. Chloe screamed, high and hollow. Reporters laughed, first nervous, then gleeful. The sound multiplied, filled the room until it felt like justice with rhythm. I stepped forward, water shining on marble, cameras snapping like applause. Chloe's makeup ran, streaking down her face like the truth finally escaping. She yelled, "You destroyed everything!" I looked at her, calm, dry, unshaken. "No," I said. "I just finished construction." The lights came back on with a click, illuminating the wreckage. Reporters scribbled, guests scattered. The fountain gurgled behind me, recycling the same water over and over, like memory refusing to drain. I stood under the arch, the same one from the wedding I wasn't invited to, and this time no one asked me to move. Then I walked out through the chaos, past the dripping marble, the shattered image, the noise of people finally realizing what foundation they'd built on. Outside, the air was cool, clean, indifferent. I could still hear laughter trailing behind me, the kind that comes when truth finally wins around. I didn't look back. As I reached the parking lot, a reporter tried to shout a question. "Mr. Dalton, any comment?" I didn't stop walking. I just said, "No need, the pictures talk fine." In the cab of my truck, I watched the lights of Elmwood glow in the mirrors like a stage after curtain call. For the first time in months, I smiled. Not victory, not pride, just release. The world doesn't reward builders for tearing down bad architecture, but it remembers the skyline afterward. I turned the key, engine steady, headlights sweeping across the gravel. Behind me, water still dripped from the fountain, the sound of something expensive learning how to fall apart. Then I drove home, window cracked, letting the night air do what no apology ever could, clear the dust.